This podcast is sponsored by Aloha. Alright, welcome to JailBreak'd. I'm your host, Seamus, aka Moose, joined by the technology guru, Ryan.
Hello.
Wow, that was a very awkward hello. In today's episode, we'll be talking about the future. Yay. Technology is going places, and today we're going to try to wrap our small brains around the new technology that might be coming out faster than you think.
So, what do you want to talk about first?
Phones, of course. Come on, man.
Alright, well, yeah, I saw your average consumer review a phone called the Poco F1 that is ripping up the Indian smartphone market, and after looking at the specs, I can see why.
What's so good about it, man?
Well,
I don't see any phones coming from the Indian smartphone market that are tearing down Apple or anything.
Well, it's $300, and you get, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes of memory, an Adreno 630 graphics card, a liquid-cooled, yes, I said liquid-cooled Snapdragon 845 processor, and you can film 4K at 30 FPS. I know I sounded like a nerd there, but it's totally okay.
So, for all you normal people out there, that means that the phone is an entire powerhouse and can totally contend with Apple.
Contend with Apple? I mean, this phone can destroy all Apple products, just straight up throw them out of business. It's just Apple's pro marketing that keeps them in business.
Oh, whoa, let's slow down there for a second. I got new information, okay? This is coming from a straight up source called Unbox Therapy on YouTube. Go check him out. Awesome YouTuber. Alright, there is a new update. The Poco F1 phone cannot play HD video on Netflix or Amazon Prime.
Okay, how many people, though, watch Netflix or Amazon Video on their phones? Watch that on the TV.
I do. I watch it on my phone.
I only watch YouTube on my phone. Excuse me, Unbox Therapy, that's not Netflix or Amazon. So, that's just YouTube. I would only use it for YouTube. That's all I use my phone to watch. Don't watch Netflix or Amazon. I watch it on a bigger screen so I don't strain my eyes.
But what about the 540p, man? That looks worse than HD on phones. Come on.
Not really.
Okay. Well, I guess we're back to Apple. Plain old Apple. So, yeah, that's mainly why people really buy iPhones, though, isn't it? Because everyone buys it because of the name, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You have to also know about the cliche iPhone cracked screen because, I mean, the screens are really cheap.
Yeah. Also, when people don't have iPhones, they're kind of looked down upon, I guess, in a way. Because, like, I've seen people who are like, oh, you have Samsung. Samsung sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because it's like, when you think of, like, smartphone, you think of Apple. I mean, it's a very popular company.
By the way, we are not sponsored by Apple by any way. Just putting it out there. Okay, so anyway, so how does the Poco F1 change all of this?
So, yeah, I think to this generation of teens and, like, young adults, when you take action and show them the phone instead of just telling them about, the product, and it actually needs to be proven to be a true mind-blowing piece of technology. The outside features like facial recognition, thumbprint sensor, and being able to film in 4K with a phone, and many other features for just like $300. $300. Those are the features that I think would excite them most.
Yeah.
The boring internals like I talked about.
For that iPhone what, 10?
Yeah.
8? Yeah. So, I do agree, like I said, that Apple's becoming more expensive. And I believe people may explore cheaper options that have the same qualities. $300 compared to $1,000 is quite a big gap. Or backing or warranty, per se.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's enough throwing shade at Apple, so...
Yeah, we're definitely putting Apple down there. Alright, well, how about 3D printing?
Oh, 3D printing. Well, I actually have a 3D printer of my own, and they are quite fascinating. Truly could shape the future.
It's actually sitting right next to us, believe it or not.
Yeah, right in front of me.
Alright, well, yeah. The limitations are kind of non-existing.
I mean, yeah, they can do so much. I've seen a video of a 3D printer that can actually print a house. Like, you've seen these wondrous machines print various plastics, whether it be flexible, sturdy like ABS, or colored, which can be any of them can be colored. I mean, you name it. But the name 3D printer doesn't just mean 3D print only plastic. No, 3D print just means using materials and layers to create three-dimensional objects. And I think that's what a lot of people, they don't understand. That's why it can print, concrete and houses and stuff like this. It's just using materials and layers to create these three-dimensional objects.
It must take a very long time.
Yes, a very long time. You have that right. My longest print on this small machine was 6 hours, let alone the time you can spend designing something. Like, I've designed various things, and so yeah, I mean, 6 hours. That's half of your day gone by just waiting for it to finish. So these houses, though, they were printed in 1 day, I believe, and that was mainly because the nozzle that it prints out of is a lot bigger than the nozzle that these smaller machines use. So that can also be why it takes more time. But so that massive nozzle is spewing out concrete. I mean, it only took 1 day to create a house, but using a small nozzle like the machines that these use, that would take like a year or something because it's so small.
2 questions. So we know the nozzles, alright, there's the size difference, but you also gotta think the difference of the size nozzles means like how detailed they can really get.
Yeah.
So like the smaller nozzles could probably make like so much something smaller. For example, like if you were to do a logo in, say, a apple or something, it would make it so much more detailed compared to that larger nozzle.
I mean, yeah, that's where it comes down to. So something that you don't need much detail, like a structure, like a building, it doesn't need that much detail, but these little things you print at home, I mean, that's also why it has a small nozzle. It doesn't need a big nozzle because, one, the printer is, the nozzle will be in comparison to the size of the printer, so you're not going to bring this massive, can print a house 3D printer to your house. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So these small machines that fit inside your house, it only makes sense that it were to have a small nozzle, so then you can print those little tiny detailed objects.
Also, if you've ever looked at pictures of houses that have been 3D printed, they are ugly.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not the nicest looking things ever, and I mean, it's not intended for that, and they could definitely advance that if they wanted to, but it was mainly to get, poor people off the streets and just make these houses, or, families that have been struck by certain things, so they make these houses for them instead of just living on the streets or in little tent, because concrete is not that expensive to make, and they can just have these machines printed in a day for only like a couple $1,000s. That's definitely a viable option.
Yeah. All right. So that's there's really not much more to say other than go buy a 3D printer.
Yeah, it was definitely a great investment. I mean, there is a very massive practical side to 3D printing. You can print all sorts of practical things instead of printing, little toys and stuff that you don't really need. But there definitely is a side to little practical pieces.
So we're going to take, and we'll see you in a moment.
Now, let's talk to majoring in computer science, the full ride at Pittsburgh University, Collin.
Also my brother. Alright.
Howdy, folks.
Alright.
So the first question, what is computer science?
So, computer science is the study of computers and programming. And programming is basically just creating the instructions that make the computers work. So that includes everything from programming apps to web applications to desktop applications. Basically anything that has a computer in it involves computer science in some sort of way. And nearly everything has a computer in it now, so computer science affects a very large portion of everything in the world.
So, is the major computer science continually growing because of that?
As of now, it is very much growing, and there are millions of unfilled jobs in computer science because not as many people are majoring in it, which is somewhat disappointing because it typically pays pretty well, but it's not the easiest major. It does involve a lot of math and logic, so not everyone's cut out for that. But yeah, it's definitely growing, and it will probably continue to grow as long as computers can't program themselves, which is probably a while away from now. So,
It's probably a good thing too.
yeah, very good thing. Good for me.
Yep.
So continuing with that, why did you decide to major in computer science?
So computer science can be a pretty creative field. You solve a lot of problems, and you solve problems by coming up with sort of creative solutions that require a lot of thinking, that aren't always like super apparent at first, which just makes for like a very fun sort of like working experience. It's not very mundane. There's always like new problems that are presenting themselves, and you just always have to be thinking. So if you're someone that likes a lot of that sort of math and logic, then computer science is like a good field. I'm kind of like that person, so it just worked out pretty well there.
So, what job do you aspire to have from this major?
I guess there's a lot of different paths that you could go with computer science. Most of them obviously involve programming in some capacity. So, like a typical job would be something like a software engineer at like Google or Facebook or Amazon or like one of these big companies. And I think that would be like one of my first choices, is to go and work for someone like that. Other typical options tend to be like to work for a smaller company like a startup, or work for like a non-tech company that still needs like a back end. So someone like, Target, because they have a website, you go and work for Target, and they need someone to do all their back end, like their website stuff, and helping with setting up their systems that fulfill orders and that sort of thing. But I think my first choice would probably be to work for like a tech company like Google or Facebook, because they do a lot of like cutting edge sort of things, or Amazon too. But there's plenty. I could keep naming them, Uber and whatever. I don't need to name them though. Everyone knows what tech companies are. So something like that probably be pretty interesting.
So going along with like computers being in everything today, what new technologies do you think will come out next, or what new technologies do you expect to come out?
I think the biggest area is probably in artificial intelligence. That's always in the news and stuff, and it kind of freaks people out because of some of the stuff that AI might become. That one Google project that they had revealed where like it can place phone calls for you and stuff like that. That's pretty creepy, but it's also kind of like the future, because it makes your time better spent. Like you don't have to make phone calls to order a pizza or whatever. It does it for you.
More efficient.
That's like yeah, definitely more efficient. And that's only like a small example, but like bigger things are like self-driving cars, especially for like industrial applications like truck drivers and other like industrial applications of machines being more intelligent. Like on factory floors, typically a robot can only do one job, and it's programmed to do that one job, and for there not to be any interruptions or like mistakes going on. But once AI gets better and it approaches more of like a human intelligence, which is humans are very good at adapting to different situations, whereas robots right now aren't, because it's all like errors. Like when you get an error when you're running a program, the computer can't figure it out. It has a specific set of instructions, and it can't account for mistakes or just little changes in the environment like that. So I think that's the biggest future, is for AI to become more adaptive. And and that they become more like humans, which makes them more efficient and better at doing more difficult tasks. So I think that's where the future is.
All right, cool. Now, going along the theme of the podcast, we talked about the Poco F1 phone. Have you heard of this?
I haven't heard of the Poco F1. What's that?
It's a new phone that it basically can compete with like the Pixel and stuff like that, but it's only sold in like India, but you can get it in the United States obviously, but like the camera is the same as the Pixel. It has a lot of really cool features, and I mean all the internals were pretty insane as well. Like there's 8 gigabytes of RAM, there's a graphics card in it, there's a better processor than the Pixel, and all sorts of stuff. Like it's also liquid cooled, and so it's pretty advanced technology being put in a phone, and it's only $300, so it definitely can compete in that area for people who are looking for cheaper, more budget options. So
But the real question is, will you be able to suffer through the 540p Netflix and Amazon?
Is that their catch? It's only 540p?
yeah,
Yes,
you can't
it only
stream, like,
runs
Netflix or
540p.
Amazon pretty much.
Huh.
But
So
I mean,
the screen is 540p, or it
no,
just
the screen is
the wi-
4K, but you can only watch. You can't really watch Netflix or like Amazon and video and stuff like that. You can watch YouTube, which is all I really use phone video for in the first place, is to watch YouTube. But I mean, if that's a big massive deal for you, like not being able to, because there's just like certain drivers, something that it doesn't have, so that I can't stream those.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm not sure how they managed to even get that price on it, even with like those smaller drivers and that sort of thing. I'm looking at there's a review on Gadgets 360 or whatever this is called.
It's because of the price difference between the Indian rupees and the US dollars is where the
I see.
big price change differs.
So it's built in India then.
Yes.
The labor to build it is probably a little bit cheaper, and definitely the exchange rate, if it were to come to the United States, they'd probably mark it up anyways too. It's probably being sold with a lower profit margin too. The Google Pixel and iPhones and everything, they're almost $1,000 now, or some of them are $1,000 plus. And a lot of that just has to do with, the phone might only cost $300 to build, but with all the marketing and other expenses for labor and development that they have to sell it for a pretty ridiculous amount of money. So the other thing, I'm not sure about the Poco one, but some of these cheaper phone companies, like Huawei is another one, the U.S. government had actually issued like a warning, because if it's built by one of these companies, especially in China, the Huawei phone, there were security concerns with like the Chinese government having control over that company and being able to hack into the phones, and then conversely, anyone who owns the phone then could be hacked by the company themselves. So that's another concern. Even if you're getting a pretty cheap phone, there's like some sort of security things that if it doesn't have drivers to stream Netflix, you have to sort of wonder about what's the security like on this too. It could be a lot easier to hack, either remotely or more locally too. But it's interesting.
That put in some more questions. We'll have to discuss this more.
Oh yeah.
Ryan, do you have any more questions?
Really?
Good question, Ryan.
Well, alright. Thank you, Collin, for talking with us.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming out and educating us.
Educating the youth,
Yeah.
of course.
Yep.
All right. Peace out, bros.
See ya.
Bye.
That just about wraps up our show, so stay tuned for our weekly podcasts.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and don't miss a chance to grab some Loha merch at loha.us.com. That is LOHA.us.com. jailbreak'd.us.com.
I'm Seamus,
I'm Ryan.
and this has been
Jailbreak'd.